Okay. Good morning to all. Good morning to everyone. I hope you are doing good. So up to yesterday class, we have completed the almost the topics that's regarding your electrical heating. So the last topic is the dielectric heating. Before this dielectric heating, we have discussed regarding the power frequency heating methods and high frequency heating methods. In the power frequency heating methods, we have seen the resistance heating, arc heating, and also uh, some like power frequency in this power frequency. So in the subtopics, when coming to the power frequency, so in the resistance heating, we have seen direct resistance heating, indirect resistance heating, and also radiant heating. So whereas in the arc heating, we have seen the classification that's based upon the arc production. There's the direct arc heating and the indirect arc heating. So those two heating methods you have studied under your that's power frequency methods. So when coming to the high frequency method, there are also two methods we are used for this heating purpose. That is an induction heating and dielectric heating. So for the yesterday class, we have learned about the induction heating methods, how they has been employed to heat up the charge, and how the furnace has been taken. So these induction heating is also has been classified into two types, that is direct type and indirect type. So in this types, we have the different classification of the furnaces, that is core type and coreless type. In the core type, we have been used for the low frequencies, and in the coreless type, we have used it for the high frequencies. So these are the up to yesterday's class we have covered the topics. And the last topic regarding your electrical heating is the dielectric heating. So here in this dielectric heating, we are not going to have any classifications regarding this dielectric. So earlier, each and every heating methods has been sub-classifications, that is direct and indirect methods. So here, this dielectric heating, we are not going to use any sub-classifications. So here, what is meant by a dielectric? So here, the name indicates two electrodes, two electric plates. So we are going to use the two plates to charge your, to heat up your charge. So here, before this dielectric heating, whatever the materials we have used for the heating purpose, those are the ferromagnetic and non-ferromagnetic, and some metals, some alloys. So all those things has been used for different types of heating methods under the power frequency and high frequency. Whereas when coming to this dielectric, it is completely different when compared to the other types of the heating, because here you are going to heat up the non-metallic materials. We are going to use the charge as your non-metallic materials. So what is that non-metallic materials other than the electrically conducting materials? That is insulators. So insulators means without having any electrical properties. That's nothing but wood, plastic, glass. So all these things are going to comes under your non-metallic materials. So when these non-metallic materials has been subjected to the high frequency, so high voltages. So here we are going to use the high voltage, because these type of method of heating takes place under your high frequency. So that's why here we are going to subject this uh, materials, that is an insulators, to the high voltages. So what is going to be happen whenever a high voltage has been applied to the insulating materials? Whatever the atoms present in that material, either it is in a wood or a plastic or in a glass, so they are going to have the stress regarding this electric field. So what is it is going to be happen whenever an electric field has been applied onto this insulating material? The atoms which was present in that material has going to be get stress. So thus the pressure is, we are going to pressurize the atoms which was present in the materials. So how it is going to be happen? How the pressure is going to be produced onto the atoms? That is due to this interatomic friction. Whenever a force has been act on the the atoms moves their position, and we by bombarding these two atoms, we are going to have some friction. Okay, so by this interatomic friction, which is going to be caused by the rotation of your atomic structure, whatever the material you have taken for this dielectric heating, so there is going to have some structure of the atomic. So that atomic structure is going to be rotate, or going to be change the place or the position. How it is going to be happen due to this interatomic friction? This is going to be caused by the deformation. So all this process is known as the polarization. Is known as polarization. So due to this polarization, whenever the pressure has been maintained on the atom, that is by supplying a high voltage and alternating electric field, a heat is going to be produced. A heat is going to be produced. That heat loss is nothing but your dielectric loss. The heat loss is nothing but dielectric loss. So when compared to the ferromagnetic materials and the insulators, so here the loss which we occurs in the insulators is known as a dielectric loss, whereas same as here corresponds to means is the same as to the hysteresis loss which was occurs in the ferromagnetic materials. So this hysteresis loss is always depends upon the frequency of your supply. So this has been uh, developed by the supply frequency. Okay, in the last class, in the induction heating, you have studied regarding the eddy current losses and the hysteresis losses. The eddy current losses is always depends upon the square of the frequency. That means higher the frequency, the loss will be very high. But when coming to the hysteresis loss, so where this hysteresis loss is going to be provide or applied, not applied, is going to be provide. That is nothing but when you are going to use the magnetic materials. In the last sections, I have discussed the points. Okay, let's continue. I will show you at the end of the class. So I think all you, I hope you understand the thing here. Whatever the hysteresis loss is the ferromagnetic material in the last class, whereas in the induction heating, the eddy current loss has been occurred for the non-magnetic materials. When we place the magnetic materials instead of non-magnetic materials, the hysteresis loss is going to be added in addition to it. So here is also same as how the hysteresis loss has been occurred in the ferromagnetic materials, same as the dielectric loss is going to be occurred in the insulators. So how this loss, this direct loss is going to be occur? This is nothing but the magnetism which we has been developed regarding the charge and the heating process. If we are going to make it as a reversal, the process is going to be reversal of the magnetism. By making that, the loss is going to be occurred. So whenever this loss has been developed in the material, so it has been going to generate a heat. By that heat, we are going to have the heating of your charge. Okay, here for your easy understanding, just I have given this. Whatever the atom, what is an atom? Atom is nothing but consisting of positive charge and negative charge. So the whenever we have took the atom, it is in the neutral position. If any material, if you take the any material of the atom is neutral, because whatever the positive charge and negative charges present in the atoms are equal. So here the atom has been considered as a neutral charge. Why? Because the number of positive charges present in the atom is equal to the number of negative charges present. So whenever the positive charges and negative charges coincide, as long as when there is no any external field is applied, that means here Let me take the pen. Here we are going to subject to the high voltage and alternating electric field. So these are the external sources, external field we are going to impose or employ on the material, insulating materials. When we employ this high voltage and the electrical field onto the insulators, whatever the atoms present in that insulators, the materials which we used as in a material, is going to be uh, have the pressure due to the interatomic friction. So that is nothing but the change of the position of atoms, that is positive charge and the negative charges. Okay, so I will show how this is going to be happen. Okay, here please check out. This is your neutral atom. That is, the positive charge and the negative charges has been equal. Here is the total atom here. So the total atom consists of the positive charge and negative charges. Here we are not going to impose any external forces, that is voltage or the electrical field. We are not going to employ anything. So this is your neutral atom. Okay, the central atom, the central point, which is in a positive charge, which is equals to the negative charges. Okay, so when I am going to apply, when I place it between the two electroplates, so I am going to have the process of polarization. Polarization means we are going to have the interatomic force. Due to that interatomic force, the positive charges and negative charges are going to be distributed. The positive charge and the negative charge is going to be distributed, and it is going to be the positive charge and the negative charges, whatever the charges present in the atom, are going to be move in the opposite direction to each other. Why? Because here the two plates, I am going to consider it is the first plate and the second plate of your dielectric. So the first place has been connected to the positive charge and the second plate has been connected to the negative charge. Whenever the supply has been, that is nothing but high voltage, and then a alternating electric field has been applied to the onto this plates, on the whenever it has been applied to the plates, the atoms gets be polarized. The atom is going to be gets polarized. That means whatever the charges, that is positive charge and negative charges present in the atoms, are going to be distributed. That is, the negative charge of the atom is going to move towards the positive charge, and the positive charge is going to move towards the negative charge. That is nothing but he is in a circulation he has taken. But whereas when the in the real times, when the insulators are going to be used, the charges are going to move in the opposite directions. So that has been, so each and every atom is going to be have the dipole moment, that is has been shown in the figure C. That is, the positive charge is going to be move away from the negative charge due to this interatomic force which was developed by passing in high voltages and high electric field. So due to this, the d is the distance. D is the distance or the diameter of your atom. The charge is the positive charge and this is the negative charge. Sorry. So this the positive q is nothing but your charge, which is in a positive atom, positive. This q is a charge which is having in a negative. So this is nothing but the two poles, positive pole and negative pole. So that's why we have give the dipole. So which is having the moment. So that's why this has been called as a dipole moment. So there's the same thing I have written here. When the atom is subjected to the influence of electric field, the positive charge of the nucleus is acted upon by some force. Yes, here we are going to supply the electric field. Then the some force is going to be acts upon the positive charges and negative charges. So where the direction of these charges are going to be in the opposite directions. Here the same thing I have explained. Okay, so the effective center of the both positive and negative charges are going to be no longer coincidence. Why? Because here we are applying the higher voltages. Due to that force, they are not going to maintain any coincidence regarding this center, that is positive charges and negative charges. So the equivalent charge distribution regarding the atom has been shown in this figure. That is nothing but a dipole moment. Okay. So this is the sum of the dielectric material. How first of all you have learned how the material has been used. In that material, how the atoms are going to be distributed under the influence of your high voltage and high electric field. Okay, due to that imposement of your pressure, that is interatomic force, how the atoms of the nucleus and the charges of the nucleus are going to be distributed to the plates which was shown in this figures. Okay, so after that, here he has did some experiment regarding these dielectric materials. So finally, we have changed this nucleus atom into this dipole moment. By using these dipole moments, the charge distribution, how this has been used to have the heat transfer to heat up your charge. Here is this dipole moment has been considered to, which is equals to P. He has taken as P. P is nothing but charge into distance. Charge into distance. That Q is the charge and D is the distance between the two centers. Okay. Now we are going to apply some forces, that is interatomic forces. How we are going to produce by due to by passing the high voltages and high alternating electric field. So due to that, the atom is going to get polarized. Due to that polarization, the dipole moment is going to be happens. So these two plates are capacitive in nature. Whatever the plates we have, capacitor plates. These are there is a first plate, the positive one and the negative one, or you can consider as this is in a first or second. That doesn't matter the showing up of 1 and 2. So you can consider either it is in a positive or negative, because here we are using a supply of AC voltage. Okay, so the name indicates we are going to apply the high voltage and the alternating electric field. That means we are using an AC voltage. Here, whatever the plates, the charge has been shown up. The charge of the plates, the negative and positive, don't take it as it is in a DC supply. Just consider it is in a the charged plate of the capacitor is in a negative and the positive, just by applying this voltage to this place. So these are the capacitor plates. Two capacitor plates we have placed, and this has been connected to a supply voltage of alternating. So whenever a supply voltage has been passed to the plates gets charged, and one plate becomes negative and one plate becomes positive. So whenever the dielectric material has been placed between these two plates, that is capacitor plates, which has been developed the negative charge and positive charge. So the dipole moment, so whatever the dipole moment has been happened due to the polarization, this is the equivalent circuit. This polarized atom has been shown as into the equivalent circuit, equivalent form, that's known as a dipole moment. Whenever the dielectric material has been placed into between these two plates, so due to this the charge of these electrodes, that is in a capacitor plates, the dipole moments, so that these electrical dipoles are also going to change their orientation. That is regarding to the with respect to the type of the charge what has been developed on the plates, the dipole the electric dipoles are going to interchange. That is the orientation that is going to be rotate. So that's why please check this figure, this dielectric material figure A. In this, whenever a supply has been passed to these two plates, this second plate or the first plate has been so okay, for our consideration I am going to consider this is as a first plate. Let me once erase it. Okay, so whenever this supply has been passed to these two plates, then the first plate has been maintained at negative charge, has become negative charge, and the second plate has become positive charge. Whenever this dielectric material, that is electric dipoles, has been placed between these two, so these are two 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the totally this dielectric material consists of 8 electric dipoles. So here the whatever the charge, positive or negative, the negative for the negative plate, the positive charge is going to be attracted. See, okay, this is the negative plate. When coming to this positive plate, whatever the negative charges of these electric dipoles are going to be attracted. Okay, this orientation is going to be done. The change of the dielectric charge, dielectric material, that is the dielectric poles are going to be attracted that with respect to the charge of your electrodes. So there is some disadvantage here. Due to this process, some energy is going to be wasted. Some energy is going to be wasted due to this interatomic friction. So whatever the waste is going to be happened due to this interatomic friction while passing the high voltage and this electric field, that loss is nothing but dielectric loss. This dielectric loss. So due to this, when there is no any perfect conductors and there is no any perfect insulators. So all the materials has been represented by the parallel combination, that is which has shown in the figure B, which was shown in the figure B. So here when coming to the circuit diagram, just check it out. Here the capital R represents your leakage resistance, and the capacitor which we has been these capacitor is nothing but the two plates, the charge of the two plates, the capacitors. C. So here we have converted this dielectric material into in a circuit diagram just for our real understandings. Okay, why? Because here we are not going to have any perfect conductors and any perfect insulators. There will be in some only some extent we are going to get the pure form. So each and every conductor or the material we are not going to have any perfectness. Some impurities has going to be added while making this the shape of your insulators or the conductors. Okay, so the all the dielectric materials has been represented by the parallel combinations. So by this we have been constructed a circuit diagram. This R is the leakage reactance, leakage resistor, sorry, not reactance, resistor. The leakage reactance has been shown with an X, but here this R is then a leakage resistor, and capacitor C, which was have the combination of parallel. Just we have placed this leakage resistor and capacitance in parallel combination. So whatever the currents passing through this leakage resistor is IR, and the leakage capacitor is IC. Yeah, not resistor, sorry. This is a capacitor, which was the current flowing through the capacitor is considered as IC, and the resistor is IR. So I is the total supply current and the V is the alternating current. So from this we have derived the phasor diagram. We have derived the phasor diagram where I is the resultant current, which is a supply current, which is a supply current. The voltage and current, the voltage and the current are 90 degrees. We have take the x-axis. On x-axis the voltage has been taken, and the y-axis we have considered the current values. So due to the we have been consider this phasor diagram. Here this is the IR and IC. In between these two currents, the resultant current. This has been happened by the phi and this is happened by this angle. So let us see the components. What are those? Okay. So here the same thing we have seen. If the AC voltage is applied across the piece of insulator, the electric current flows. The total current I supposed to make up the two components, that is IC and IR. That is nothing but here itself. When you are going to supply this electrical current, at this point, the current is going to be divided. That is into the IR and IC. That is leakage resistor current and capacitor current. Okay. So where IC is the capacitive current leading the voltage by 90 degrees. IR is in phase with the applied voltage. Here, if you observe this phasor diagram, whatever the voltage, it is going to be 90 degrees leading to the current. So the current which was distributed into IR and IC, this IR is going to be in phase with the voltage. Why? Because whatever the voltage present are going to be supplied to the circuit is equivalent to the this VR. That's why the current is going to be in phase. The voltage of this VR is going to be in phase with this supply voltage. That's why in the IR is in phase with the voltage. So this is the IC current which was 90 degrees leading to the voltage. This is the same thing we are saying by 90 degrees. So IR is in phase to the applied voltage. So that is the thing we have shown in this phasor diagram. From this we have derived some equations regarding this dielectric loss, where dielectric loss is nothing but VI cos phi. VI cos phi. Where from this phasor diagram, the IR is going to be considered as when you have the cos phi from this phasor diagram. If you consider this phasor diagram here itself, this is an IR, this is an IC, and this is an a resultant I. So it's making an angle phi. This is the from origin. From this, if you consider this cos phi from the angle cos phi, this I and IR. Okay, what is going to be I by sorry IR by I. That is adjacent to hypotenuse. IR is the adjacent and I is the hypotenuse, IR by I. From this we can calculate IR is equal to I into cos phi. That is the same thing we have written here. IR is nothing but I into cos phi. So as per the equation of the dielectric loss, PL is nothing but VI cos phi. So from this we are going to replace this I into cos phi as IR. I into cos phi as IR. So when coming to this capacitive current, so I will draw here itself. If you consider this I is the resultant, this is the capacitive current and this is the resistor, leakage resistor current. So here the angle of deviation between this resultant and the capacitor current is considered as delta. So when you consider the tan delta, so what is going to be happen? Opposite by adjacent. That is nothing but sine delta by cos delta, opposite by hypotenuse by adjacent by hypotenuse. Hypotenuse are going to be cancelled and opposite by adjacent. Here the opposite is nothing but your IR here, because we are going to consider the angle with respect to IC. That's why the IR is going to be opposite phase and this IC is in phase. So IR by IC. From this we can calculate the IR, where IR is nothing but IC into tan delta. So from the above equation we are going to replace in terms of capacitor current. In terms of capacitor current, where V is equal to IC into tan delta. So all we know that we are going to, when coming to this circuit diagram, so this is in a resistor, we are going to consider the reactance of the capacitor XC. So here this is, so just placing an IC is equal to V by XC, V by XC, that is V by XC into tan delta, where charge into capacitor current gives your V by XC. So where XC is nothing but omega 1 by omega C. XC is nothing but omega by 1 by omega C. So when we place this XC value, reactance of your capacitor has been 1 by omega C. When you place this, so the final thing is going to be happen. That is V into V square. The XC value is 1 by omega C. So it is going to be into the denominator to the numerator. So omega C into tan delta, where omega is nothing but 2 pi f, which was in the radians. We are going to convert into the hertz. That is, omega is nothing but 2 pi f. So C is the capacitor, that is epsilon naught epsilon r A by D. Okay, this is the resultant permeability, initial permeability, area of cross section, and D is the diameter. Where into delta into tan delta into tan delta, which was measured in watts. The dielectric, which was measured in watts. Here the typing mistake, into tan delta. Tan delta. So this is the final dielectric loss. Okay. So here we have explained the terminals. That is, V is the applied voltage, F is the supply frequency, epsilon is the absolute permittivity, as the value of this dielectric loss permittivity is 8.854 into 10 power minus 12. This is power 10 power minus 12 farads per meter. So epsilon r is the relative permeability for the medium. So for the free space, the epsilon r is going to be the value 1. So area is the area of the plate or the electrodes, a meter square, and D is the thickness of the dielectric medium, and delta is the loss angle of the radian. So from this equation, that is PL. So this is PL. From this PL, we can say, when we consider this, because this 2 pi is constant, F is constant, epsilon naught is constant, epsilon r is the constant, from the area is going to be constant, D is the constant. So the rest of the things, sorry, not the frequency, because the frequency is going to be here, the phase angle, the delta is going to be constant. Here the two terms where the dielectric losses are going to be depends is nothing but the voltage and the frequency. Okay, the frequency is going to be changed. We cannot maintain the frequency constant for the longer duration. So the frequency is going to be depends upon the charge heating. So the rest of the terms are going to be in a constant. That's why the dielectric loss, which is going to be depends upon these two terms, that is the voltage and frequency. So that is the thing I have written here. So the dielectric loss is directly proportional to the V square, because here this is an equality proportional. So we are going to place this equality by all these things are then a constant things, equality constants. Just replace it with the proportionality constant. So when we have been changed these equations, PL is directly proportional to V square and PL is directly proportional to frequency. So from these two conditions, we can easily understand, and we can easily say that the dielectric loss is always going to depends upon the square of your supply voltage and the frequency. So here he has given some of the ranges how this frequency and the high voltage is going to be limited. So at which range the dielectric heating is going to be considered for heating up your charge, and how much of high voltage is going to be limited. So here, just 3 points I have mentioned here. For the normal frequency, there's the formal frequency that say about frequency is 40 hertz or 50 hertz. We are going to be considering in our India. But when these heating methods, we are going to have this frequency in the megahertz. So why? Because we have to have that much of heating effect to heat your material. Okay, that is an insulating material. So at normal frequency used for the dielectric heating, so that is of the range 1 to 40 megahertz. So we are going to operate this dielectric heating method in the range of the frequency 1 to 40 megahertz. So the usage of this high voltage is also going to make the limited due to the breakdown voltage of thin dielectric that is to be heated. Suppose if you consider that this dielectric material as a thin dielectric material which was placed between the two electrodes. So if you applied very high voltage, then what is going to be happen? It is going to be breakdown. Why? Because the resistance of this dielectric material is very thin, that is low. So that's why when we are applying this high voltage, we have to be limited for a certain period and certain amount for the dielectric particles which are thin. Okay, this is the one factor we have to be considered. And the last one is under normal conditions, the voltage gradient used is limited to 18 kilovolts per centimeters. So if you consider this dielectric material, that is insulating material of a length which was measured in centimeters. So he has taken under the normal conditions. We are not going to apply any high voltages or the high frequencies. Under these normal conditions, the voltage which was provided to heat up the this dielectric material is limited to 18 kilovolts per centimeter. If you consider this 100 centimeters, then the total voltage gradient we are used under the normal conditions is 180 kilovolts for the 100 centimeters length. So this voltage gradient is also going to be maintained under the length of your heating element. Okay, these are some factors. So this is the process we are going to use here for the dielectric method. Okay, there are some of the advantages and also applications where we are going to be used. Let us see. So please check out the advantages and you can read it directly. So there's nothing and a difficult thing to remember where these dielectric heating methods are going to be applicable and and what are the advantages of this dielectric heating. So all you know, the first of all you have to keep in mind is the dielectric heating material, the dielectric heating method is always going to use on the non-conducting materials. Is going to be used on the non-conducting materials, that is the wood, paper, plastic sheets, all those things. From that you can easily have the applications. That means you are going to use this dielectric heating for the paperwork, woodwork, plastic works. Okay, so these are some advantages. Let me read out here itself. The heating of non-conducting material is very rapid. The uniform heating is material is possible. Yes, here the main advantage is when we are using this dielectric heating method, that is when we are placing these capacitor plates of the electrodes, we are going to have the uniform heating of the material which you wants to be heated up. So the third one is whatever the heat we have produced on the material, it is going to be imposed on the whole body of the whole material. That is whole density, mass of the material which you have used as the dielectric purpose. Okay, here the some dielectric heating applications. You can easily read it out. They are using for drying the paper, gluing of wood, plastic sheets, coffee roasting, chocolate industries. So dehydration, there is heating is used for the dehydration, that is such as milk, cream, and vegetables. So preparation of thermoplastic resins, heating of bones and tissues. Okay, diathermy. Diathermy is nothing but the heat treatment of certain body pains and diseases. Okay, the sterilization of absorbent cotton, bandages, the process of rubber, the processing of rubber, synthetic materials, chemicals, etc. So the plastic is nothing but all you know in our households. Each and everyone, at least we are using the plastic stools or plastic chairs. So having an companies of Nilkamal, all those things. Nothing but the company which was going to produce that type of productions which was made up of plastics. So there we in the industries they are using this dielectric heating methods to get that product. So not only this industrial side, we are going to use in the at the side of the medical treatments. That is like diathermy, the sterilization. So all those things are going to be considered. So up to this, we are going to end up this topic that is dielectric heating. So once again, I am just giving an outline regarding this heating methods. Okay, heating methods. That is so here this heating methods has been classified into two types, that is power frequency methods and high frequency methods. In this power frequency method, they has been subclassified into two types. Just that is as per your syllabus, you have been studied for two purposes. That is resistance heating and arc heating. In that resistance heating, this has been subclassified into direct resistance heating and indirect resistance heating and radiant heating. So the mode of transformations of heat has been studied, that is like by conduction, convection, and radiation. So when coming to the arc heating, that depends upon the type of furnace, that is a direct arc furnace and indirect arc furnace. The charge is going to be heated up. So due to the production of arc between the two electrodes, either in the vertical position or in the horizontal position. Okay, we have seen this. So those two topics has been covered under your power frequency. When coming to this high frequency, there are the two methods we have used here. That is the induction heating and dielectric heating. In this induction heating also, we has been classified into two types. That depends upon the furnaces also, induction furnaces. That is core type or low frequency furnace, or coreless or high frequency furnaces. So in this core type furnace also, we has been classified into three types, that is direct, indirect, and also vertical core type. That is vertical core type is nothing but your Ajax Watt induction furnace. So that is nothing but the type of the furnace which we have been constructed. So here in that Ajax Watt furnace, we have been used the V shape, but apart of that V shape, we can use that U shape or the rectangular shape. That depends upon your construction and availability. Okay. So when coming to this coreless type, we have been used the material to be charged without using any core, just placing in a charge in the container, and we are going to apply a high voltage or the high frequency from the primary winding. So due to the flux which was produced by the primary winding is going to set up an eddy currents in the charge. So the eddy currents itself is going to produce the heat energy. From that heat energy, you are going to heat up your charge. Okay, this is the process which was has been considered while employing the method of coreless. So this has been, so there we have considered the shape of the container. So we can use that U shape. We can change a part of that thing. So okay, from that we have completed the induction, and the last topic, dielectric heating, for the today class we have completed this. So how the atoms are going to be transformed to the positive plate and negative plate due to the apply of your high frequencies, and that is high voltages, and the alternating electric field. Due to that, they both are going to be uh, the heat, how the heat is being produced by that material, and how the heat energy is utilized for the charge of your to heating up of your charge. And we have seen the phasor diagram on some of the advantages and applications. So based upon this dielectric heating and the induction heating, so we would like to have the some problems. So let us have this problem. It is very easy. Okay. So let us see this. Please read it out. Just I will complete within 5 minutes, and I will wind up this class. So up to these problems, we are going to complete our complete electric heating. So from next class onwards, we are going to deal with the electrical welding. So we will see how the methods are going to be used for the electrical welding. So this is the easy one. Uh, Determine the atomic amount of energy required to melt 2 ton of zinc. So he is asking the amount of energy required to melt the 2 ton of zinc. The material of the heating material is zinc in 1 hour time period he has given. If it operates at an efficiency of 70%, specific heat of the zinc is equals to 0.1. The latent heat of the zinc is 26.67 kilocalories per kg. The melting point is 480 degrees centigrade. The initial temperature is 25 degrees centigrade. So he has given some data regarding the heating material. Here he has considered the heating material as the zinc. So he wants to melt the zinc of weight 2 ton. So he is asking, please calculate how much amount of energy I would require to heat this 2 tons of zinc in 1 hour. So he wants to complete his job in 1 hour. That is the melting of 2 ton of zinc. Okay. So he has given some specifications regarding the process. So that is the efficiency, specific heat, how much of the specific heat of the zinc is equals latent heat, all this. Let us see the solution. This is the simple solution. So 2 ton, 1 ton is equals to the ton is equals to 1000 kgs. So we have changed the ton into the kgs. The weight of the zinc is 2000 kgs. So the heat required, the raising of temperature from 25 degrees to 480 degrees centigrade. So he has given the latent heat, the melting point. So at 480 degrees centigrade, at this temperature, the amount of zinc which we have been considered is going to be melt up. But the initial temperature of the zinc we have, when you have been considered for the heating purpose, is has been 25 degrees centigrade. So how much of the heat is going to be required? So this is the temperature, right? 25 degrees centigrade degrees లో ఉన్న జింక్ ని 480 degrees centigrade దగ్గర టెంపరేచర్ కి రేస్ చేస్తే సో ఆ జింక్ అనేది మెల్ట్ అవుతుంది అన్న. సో ఆ డిగ్రీస్ టెంపరేచర్ దగ్గర ఎంత హీట్ అనేది ప్రొడ్యూస్ అవుతుంది. సో ఫర్ దట్ వీ హ్యావ్ క్యాలిక్యులేటెడ్, దట్ ఈస్ హీట్ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు weight of the zinc into specific heat of the zinc into final temperature, the difference between the final temperature and initial temperature. So by placing the values, that is 2000 kgs into specific heat, he has given 0.1. The specific heat has been given as 0.1. This 0.1 into T2 minus T1. This is the final temperature, that is the melting temperature, and initial temperature is T1. While placing these values, I have got the 91,000 kilocalories. Now we have calculated the heat required. Now the heat required for melting. So this is the heat we calculated for raising the temperature from 25 degrees to 480 degrees centigrade. So how much of the heat? So ఇక్కడ మనకి మనం క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసే దాన్ని బట్టి 91,000 కిలో క్యాలరీస్ ఆఫ్ హీట్ అనేది మనకి అవసరం. దేనికి? ఆ జింక్ ని మెల్ట్ చేయడానికి మనం రేస్ చేయాల్సిన మన టెంపరేచర్, వాడు ఇచ్చిన ఇనిషియల్ టెంపరేచర్ 25 డిగ్రీస్. ఆ 25 డిగ్రీస్ నుంచి 48 డిగ్రీ సెంటిగ్రేడ్ కి మనం టెంపరేచర్ ని ఇంక్రీజ్ చేయాలి అని అంటే మనకి ఇంత అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ హీట్ అనేది అవసరం. సో అది క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసాం. ఇప్పుడు మనం ఏం చెప్తున్నాం? సో ఈ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ హీట్ అంటే 480 డిగ్రీస్ కి రీచ్ అవ్వడానికి మనం 91,000 కిలో క్యాలరీస్ హీట్ అనేది రిక్వైర్మెంట్ అవుతుందని మనం క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసాం. సో ఇప్పుడు అంత టెంపరేచర్కి రీచ్ అయిన తర్వాత ఆ టెంపరేచర్ దగ్గర ఎంత అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ హీట్ అనేది మనకు కావాలి ఆ జింక్ 2000 kgs జింక్ ని మెల్ట్ చేయడానికి. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద ఫార్ములా is weight of the zinc into latent heat. The latent heat has been given here 26.67 just by calculating 53,340 degrees centigrade. అంటే ఇక్కడ మనం 91,000 కిలో క్యాలరీస్ హీట్ ని ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేస్తే ఆ ఫర్నెన్స్ యొక్క టెంపరేచర్ 480 డిగ్రీస్ కి రీచ్ అవుతుంది. ఆ 480 డిగ్రీస్ సెంటిగ్రేడ్ దగ్గర రీచ్ అయిన ఫర్నెన్స్లో మనం ఈ 2000 కేజీస్ని జింక్ని మెల్ట్ చెయ్యాలి అని అంటే మనకి 53,340 కిలో క్యాలరీస్ ఆఫ్ హీట్ అనేది రిక్వైర్మెంట్. ఇది ఓకే. సో మనకి ఇప్పుడు టోటల్ హీట్ రిక్వైర్మెంట్ అంటే ఇప్పుడు మనకి రేస్ చేయడానికి మెల్ట్ చేయడానికి రెండు. సో బై యాడింగ్ దిస్ టూ వి గాట్ 1,44,340 కిలో క్యాలరీస్. సో అంటే మొత్తం ప్రాసెస్ జరగడానికి మొత్తం టోటల్ అమౌంట్ ఎంత కావాలి అంటే మనకి ఇంత అమౌంట్, దట్ ఈస్ 144,340 కిలో క్యాలరీస్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ హీట్ అనేది రిక్వైర్డ్. సో ఇక్కడ కనుక్కున్నాం, కానీ వాడు ఏం అడుగుతున్నాడు, అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఎనర్జీని కనుక్కోమంటున్నాడు. ఎంత అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఎనర్జీ అనేది కావాలి 2 కేజీల జింక్ని మెల్ట్ చేయడానికి. సో హియర్ I have done some steps. Please check it out. 4.18 joules ni 1 calorie కింద తీసుకోండి. సో 1 joule per second అంటే 1 watt. సో మనం కిలో క్యాలరీస్ ని జౌల్స్ లోకి మార్చాలి, ఎందుకంటే ఎనర్జీ ఇక్కడ మనం ఎనర్జీ క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేయడానికి జౌల్స్ లోకి మార్చాలి. సో ఇక్కడ మనకు ఉన్నది కిలో క్యాలరీస్, మనకు వచ్చిన టోటల్ హీట్ కిలో క్యాలరీస్. ఇక్కడ ఏంటంటే ఒక క్యాలరీ వచ్చేటప్పటికి 4.8 వాట్ సెకండ్స్. సో 4.8 వాట్ సెకండ్స్. ద వాట్ సెకండ్స్ ఈస్ నథింగ్ బట్ అనే జౌల్. 1 joule 1 watt second is equal to 1 joule, that is 4.18 watt seconds అంటే 4.18 joules. అదే ఇక్కడ రాశాను. దట్ ఈస్ విచ్ ఈస్ ఈక్వల్స్ టు 1 calorie. అండ్ 1 joule per second అంటే మనం టైం పీరియడ్ పరంగా చూసుకుంటే జౌల్ పర్ సెకండ్ని వాట్ కింద తీసుకుంటాం. సో ఇప్పుడు ఎనర్జీ ఇన్పుట్ని క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేస్తున్నాం. సో దిస్ ఎనర్జీ ఇన్పుట్ ఈజ్ నథింగ్ బట్ టోటల్ హీట్ ఫార్ములా. నేను డైరెక్ట్ టోటల్ హీట్ రిక్వైర్డ్, that is total heat required, okay, by, so we are going to convert this energy into joules, that is nothing but 3,600 into efficiency. Efficiency is 70%, that is 0.70. So by placing this, so ఇక్కడ మనకి ఏంటంటే కిలో క్యాలరీస్ కదండి. సో దట్స్ వై 144,340 ఇంటూ కిలో అంటే 10⁻³ ఇంటూ మనకి 1 calorie ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు 4.18. సో అందుకనే దీంతో మల్టిప్లై చేస్తాం బై 3,600 ఇంటూ 10⁻³ కిలో జౌల్స్ కాబట్టి ఇక్కడ మనకి తీసుకోండి. సో ఇంటూ ద ఎఫిషియన్సీ. సో క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేస్తే ఫైనల్గా మనకు వచ్చింది ఎనర్జీ ఇన్పుట్. దిస్ ద ఎనర్జీ ఇన్పుట్, దట్ ఈస్ 239.42 కిలోవాట్ అవర్. సో ఇప్పుడు మనకు కావాల్సింది ఎనర్జీ. సో ఎనర్జీ is I² RT, that's power is equal to energy by time, and power is nothing but the ratio of energy to the amount of energy required by the rate of energy is nothing but power. సో ఇక్కడ మనకి ఏమన్నాడు వాడు, నాకు అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఎనర్జీ కావాలి, సో విత్ ఇన్ 1 అవర్లో నేను 2 tons ఆఫ్ జింక్ని మెల్ట్ చేయాలి. సో 2,230 మనం ఎనర్జీ ఇన్పుట్ ఎంత వచ్చింది, 239.42 kilowatts per 1 hour. This is hour, that is, ఎందుకంటే ఇక్కడ మనకు వచ్చేది ఇప్పటికి కిలోవాట్ అవర్ ఇది. సో ఈ అవర్ క్యాన్సిల్ అయిపోతే మనకి మిగిలింది 239.42 kilowatts. అంతే అయిపోయింది ప్రాబ్లం. సో దిస్ ఇస్ ద సింపుల్ థింగ్. జస్ట్ వాడిచ్చిన వెయిట్కి మనం ఎంత హీట్ అనేది రేస్ చేయాలి, సో ఎంత హీట్ అనేది మనం మెల్ట్ చేయాలి, మెల్టింగ్కి ఉపయోగపడుతుంది. ఇవి రెండు యాడ్ చేస్తే మనకు వచ్చేదే టోటల్ హీట్ రిక్వైర్మెంట్. ఓకే, ఫ్రమ్ దట్ we have calculated the energy input ఫ్రమ్ దట్ ఎనర్జీ ఇన్పుట్ వాడు స్పెసిఫిక్గా ఇంత టైంలోనే మెల్ట్ చేయాలి అని చెప్పేసానని వాడు ఇచ్చాడు మనకి డేటాలో. సో అకార్డింగ్ టు దట్ వీఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు కన్సిడర్ ద టైమ్ ఆల్సో. ఎనర్జీ ఈజ్ నథింగ్ బట్ ఐ స్క్వేర్ అది. సో జనరల్గా ఏమీ లేదు మనకి ఇచ్చేటప్పుడు. విఐ ఎనర్జీ ఈజ్ నథింగ్ బట్ విఐ. V is nothing but IR according to Ohm's law. So that implies I into IR is equal to I square R. I square R. So this is the power. Power is nothing but I square R. But kani energy kavali anante, that is nothing but when you wants to this power to the energy, that's just place the T. Ante with respect to time ni manam consider చేసినప్పుడు we are going to have the energy I square RT. So that is going to be considered as energy. So power ante manaku telisinde kada. So the amount of energy required with respect to time. So that is energy by time. Manaki energy alago calculate chesam 239.4, that is energy input. So total power, amount of energy. Okay. So this is the type of the questions they are going to be asked. There is another problem also. Just I have given the సొల్యూషన్ డైరెక్ట్లీ. ఇక్కడ కూడా ఏం లేదండి, వాడు జస్ట్ ఇండక్షన్ ఫర్నెన్స్ అనేది యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాడు, హై ఫ్రీక్వెన్సీ ఇండక్షన్ ఫర్నెన్స్. అందులో వాడు ఇచ్చిన టైము 20 మినిట్స్. ఆ 20 మినిట్స్లో 1.9 kg ఆఫ్ అల్యూమినియంని మెల్ట్ చేయాలి. సో వాడు ఇచ్చిన డేటా ఏంటంటే ఇన్పుట్ ఇచ్చాడు, ఫర్నెన్స్కి ఎంత అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఎనర్జీ అనేది ఇస్తుంది అనేది, ఇనీషియల్ టెంపరేచర్ ఇచ్చాడు. సో ఇక్కడ వాడు ఏం చేయమంటున్నాడంటే కనుక్కోమన్నది మనకి ఎఫిషియన్సీ. సో ఇంత అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఛార్జ్ని ఇంత టైంలో గనక హీట్ చేస్తే, మెల్ట్ చేస్తే ఆ మెల్ట్ చేయడానికి ఇచ్చిన డేటా ఇంత అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్పుట్ ఇస్తున్నాము. సో ఇనీషియల్ టెంపరేచర్ 25 డిగ్రీ సెంటిగ్రేడ్లో ఉంది. సో దాని యొక్క స్పెసిఫికేషన్స్ ఇచ్చాడు, ఆ యూస్ చేసిన ఛార్జ్, స్పెసిఫిక్ హీట్ ఇంత, మెల్టింగ్ పాయింట్ ఏమో 660 డిగ్రీస్, ఇందాకడేమో 480 డిగ్రీస్. జింక్ అనేది 480 డిగ్రీస్ దగ్గర సెంటిగ్రేడ్ దగ్గర మనకి మెల్ట్ అవుతుంది. ఈడిచ్చిన అల్యూమినియం ఏమో 660 డిగ్రీస్ సెంటిగ్రేడ్ దగ్గర అవుతుంది. లేటెంట్ హీట్ ఇచ్చాడు. సో దీని నుంచి ఏంటంటే ఎఫిషియన్సీ కనుక్కోవాలి. సో దీస్ ఆర్ ద 4 స్టెప్స్ టు క్యాలిక్యులేట్. ఇది జస్ట్ 7 మార్క్స్ అడిగాడు. ఓకే, ప్లీజ్ చెక్అవుట్ దిస్ ప్రాబ్లమ్. Just I will post this problem and solution also in this WhatsApp group. Okay, up to this we are going to wind up this class. Okay, so I will give some more problems with the solutions regarding the dielectric heating and some problems regarding resistance heating. All those things we have seen earlier, but I will provide you a material which consists of some more problems. These are the some outline problems, how they are going to be asked in your end exams, and how the solutions you have to be made while solving these type of problems. Okay, so please by end of this day I'm going to post this total unit of this electrical heating, complete PPT and also the material. Please go through that PDF and also this PPT. So if you have any doubts regarding any topic regarding this electrical heating, please share your questions and the doubts in the WhatsApp group. So I will get back to you with the answers. Okay, for this today's class I am going to conclude this. Okay, stay safe and please go through the videos which we are going to post in the YouTube, and also please check the PDFs. So earlier I have posted the first unit complete material, and now I am going to post this electrical heating part and also some problems regarding on this things. Okay, thank you all, be safe, thank you, bye.